I'm Kathy Conrad, and this is
Shirlee.
And the two of us are going to do a demonstration today for painting ornaments. And this is kind of a precursor to a potential workshop coming up. And there are a couple of things that the two of us share that we'd like to make sure that you are aware of about this class. And one is be able to bring good quality brushes and paint. One of the things that I just most recently did is I went down to Michael's and picked this up. It was on sale for $4.95 or something like that. And it's a starter kit of Artist Loft, which is Michael's brand name, of starter, all different colors of acrylic paint. And this would be a good thing to use for the class. Good quality paint, and which is important for both our types of work. The other, of course, is a detail brush, because this is like miniature work that we're going to be painting, and it's important that you have good quality brushes. Shirley, can you think of anything that you'd like to have folks bring or remember to do?
Well, if you want to bring your own acrylic paints, would be fine.
And you talked about stencils or some kind of an idea of what you want to bring. We're going to bring ideas as well.
Okay, the bulbs, you know, I can make little patterns out of a paper that you could trace onto, or you can do it freehand. That's up to you. So,
Or, like I said, or you could bring your own, but just try to keep in mind that
but I will bring some patterns.
okay, and I'm going to bring some too. But the bulbs and sand dollars are a certain size, and so if you're going to be making a pattern, make them a couple different sizes so that if one doesn't fit, the other one will. So anyway, one of the things about sand dollars is that they don't come clean. I go into the ocean and I collect them myself. For me, it's a love. I love finding them. My sister goes with me, and when we find them, they are nasty. This is a nasty one. Do not take it out, but I'm going to pass it around. Usually it comes much darker than this, a dark greeny brown, and that's why sometimes they're hard to find when they're laying on the sand of the ocean, because they're.
What beach do you?
I usually go right off the point there in Seaside, just right off, and I go left or I go right. I go at low tide. I go after storms on low tide, and once you figure out how to get them. There was a man that approached me once and said, "What are you doing?" And I told him I was collecting sand dollars. He goes, "Well, I don't see any." I said, "Well, you're about to step on two." Because they don't present themselves as you think they would. You'll see broken ones all the time. I only use them as an indicator that there might be whole ones around. And usually the whole ones present themselves as just a flat mound. Sometimes the sand is completely over them. And maybe you'll be able to see like a quarter size of the top. So you have to be looking for some kind of strange little nuance in the sand to find them. And sometimes they're live. You turn them over. You'll see on the back of this one, which I'll pass around, they got these they're little legs, little cilia, and they're moving. And that means they're alive. And most often, if you leave them, they will die. But I am not entirely sure whether or not if you get caught with live sea life, that you might get fined. So I leave them. This one was definitely dead when I picked it up, but I can tell you they are more difficult to clean than the ones that are already deceased and are missing those little spines. So I'll pass this around and people can take a look at it. Do you boil them or do anything to it? What I do is when I get them home, I will put them in a fresh bucket of water and I'll pour like a 50% solution of bleach on them and water. Let them sit for a few days. And then I sit outside typically and wash them out with a hose. There's sand inside, there's dead carcass inside. They're really something you want to do outside. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes to clean a sand dollar. And then afterwards I let them dry. And as you can see, even after being bleached, I've got 3 different examples. They're not always, in fact, this one's still shedding sand. They're not always bright and shiny white. Some of them have little birthmarks on them, and I intentionally brought those so you see that some of them, they're not perfect, and sometimes they've got chips on them. I try to high grade mine so that they don't have chips on them, but you're just not gonna get perfect sand dollar. They're all different shapes. Get rid of that sand. Now, after they are completely dry, I will take them and do a couple of things to them. I will either use, I didn't bring it, gesso on both sides. I have a rack in the oven. I set my temperature about 180 degrees and I'll paint the tops, set them in there, let them dry, bring them out, paint the backs, put them back in, let them dry. I use gesso, or I will use a, this is black, but I'll use a Craft Smart white paint on them, either one. And then, when that paint is dried, I will take this outside. It's a clear coat. This is an Ultra Gloss Clear by Rust-Oleum. And I'll do a light shoot on the front, and I let it dry, light shoot on the back. And what that does is it provides a barrier. These things are, as you can see, they're extremely porous. They will suck the paint right off your brush. And which makes it difficult to do detail line work because you're dragging and you're leaving all kinds of, not a smooth line, but a jagged line. So it's important to have a smooth product. And sometimes when I do my background first, I'll do another light shoot, let it dry. Because then I'm able to use paint on it, and if I make a mistake, it's easy to come off. Because if you don't pre-coat your sand dollar with some kind of a sealer, it's on there. You might have to paint over it with white, but there's no guarantee that that white isn't going to be just slightly different than the white next to it. So it's easier to have your product coated with a sealant so that if you do need to remove any of it, you just have a Q-tip with a little water and take it off and let it dry. Because sand dollars are so small, I'm not going to sit here and watch me. So I went to Dollar Tree, bought myself a glass trivet, and I painted on here with white, and I have got a, what I call my glass sand dollar. And you can do a number of things with this. I don't have this sprayed because I plan on washing it off and using it again. But typically you would have sprayed it to give it a sealant. And then you can go in and you can very lightly draw what you want. And if you can do a stencil kind of a situation where a small piece of paper, you can put a little pencil on the back and then hold it down and create, if you can get it. It's really hard to get it to show through, but you might be able to get it to give you just a bit of an outline so you can then go back in and touch it up so you've got some sort of pattern to follow. And like I said, you can do that with, if you feel real brave, you can do it with your black paint right away. This is, I'll show you two samples. This one is ready to hang. This one, these birds look identical. That's all freehand. So, just saying is that if you get to the point where you know what you're doing, you can virtually create again and again over and over what you're doing. But if you prefer to use a stencil, that's great. But these are two that I have already done, and I'll be filling in color. Oftentimes what I do is I will paint this first, which I'll show you, of the birds, and then I'll go in and do an outline afterwards. I do outlines. I don't know. I'm looking at Shirley's stuff she does on some of hers. Makes your image pop out. To get this, I basically, you can see the hole. It's on an angle. I want to give this a little bit of a different kind of look. I don't want it to be a straight horizon. So I will take, and some people use paintbrushes. I use my fingers. And I will start with the bottom. And I will just add my color to the bottom on an angle. Maybe I'll add a little white for a little variation. Here you've got some, looks like a little wave motion because you're basically trying to create a seabed or a shoreline. And before it has dried, I want to go in and start the top. And again, we have, this color is a combination of white and a little bit of color to it. You can make it blue, you can make it any color. What I chose to do this color. And again, when I get down to where the actual, a little bit of water, because then I'm going to kind of do a little blending here, so that it just kind of feathers into what you have here. And again, water. And this is where the hairdryer comes in. Or if I'm doing more than one at a time, I stick it in the oven. I go to the Dollar Tree and pick up a little cookie wrap and put mine on there, slip it in the oven at 180 degrees and just let it dry. Or like I said, or sometimes I will use the hairdryer. But primarily, here's the hole at the top. You got things on an angle. And so I'm going to want to put my birds in. And these I've done in solid white. I've also done them with brown wings. Depends on whatever kind of bird you want to do. But one of the things that's, you shouldn't just necessarily be happy with what you got there. I have taken just a bit of water and a little bit of brown paint and a toothbrush. And what I'm going to do is make a mess on the table. I went in and created.
Oh, that's nice.
And you know who taught me this? My 9-year-old granddaughter.
Oh,
We
wow.
were painting at the coast this winter. She says, "Grandma, do you have a toothbrush?" I said, "Am I going to want it back?" And she says, "No." I said, "Well, I've got one in the RV under the sink, blah, blah, blah." So she went and got it, and she did this on her rock. And I went, "Maddie, you just giving Grandma an idea." So this gives you just a bit of a splattering of the background, and unfortunately my splatter didn't work well on my examples, which I will pass around and show you different. But the thing is that when you're ready to draw your picture, you need to spray this. This is where I talked about you need to create a barrier, because if you're going to do any kind of detail work, you don't want to smear it into anything. And acrylic paint, if you mess with it long enough, it'll start coming up and it will start blending into it'll create mud. So it's important that you let it dry and give it a shot. Let it dry, and then you are ready for the second half of this, which is drum roll.
You got it all lined up.
Is this. And again, freehand. You can, like I said, practice on a piece of paper and then do a pencil tracing on the back. Stabilize it with a piece of paper or something. It's difficult to do on a sand dollar because it is mounded. And if you felt on them, there's ridges. And so trying to get anything that you do an applique on, it's going to be bumpy. It's going to be a challenge to hold it down and get what you want on it. So if you manage to get just 30 or 50% of it, at least you've got enough that you could maybe freehand it to do your pieces. Now, I have taken and put little wings on these and made the wings brown, give a little bit of brown at the top of the heads. But, I'm so wet. When it's done, then you finalize it again. Oftentimes, if you don't want to, you can just settle for the back of it being white. And you just give it a clear shot, let it dry. Or you can paint it so that it matches the front. But again, I spray it, let this side dry first. Then I'll spray this one, because if you do this side first and You lay it over and spray this side. If this side isn't completely dry, when you pick it up, you've got a mess. So, that said, we come down to the ribbon. And the class, Shirlee is going to provide, or at least the class will provide, ornaments for you to paint on. I will provide 3 sand dollars that will be already prepped for you, because the prep process takes a half hour, to do. They'll have holes drilled in them. I have a drill press at home, and so I will press your holes in them. And I have probably about 20 or 30 different colors of ribbon that I will bring that you can choose from for one ornament. And 19 inches is what we measure off. And I will bring instructions. If you want to come up and take a look at these, or look at the one that's going around, it took me a while to figure out how to string that single ribbon through and create a perfect bow on the front. So there is a little bit of a learning curve on that, and I will teach you. I will give away the family secrets on that. There's no sense in trying to recreate the wheel, and I've always been one to share and not leave out one ingredient in the cake, and you're wondering what the hell happened. So, I have a friend whose mother-in-law did that to her. Her husband's favorite cake, and she left out one ingredient intentionally. So, you can choose to be a good artist and share your skills, or you can be a bad artist, but I'm a good artist. So, any questions about my process, and I'll let Shirlee go in and...
I have a comment.
Yeah.
She mentioned she went outside to spray this.
Yes.
Just the other day, I was in my garage and I was gonna spray, and I realized I was standing next to my hot water heater, which is fire.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, so be careful with this stuff.
Yeah. And when we do spray this, I'm going to have a piece of cardboard or something set up outside. Usually what I like to do is I like to have a little cup or something, and usually it's a lid off of a milk jug, okay? And so I will set my product on top, spray it, let it dry, turn it, let it dry. Try to keep it up off of the surface, let's say if it's cardboard, because you're going to be digging it off and getting your fingers sticky if there's any still any wet paint. So I will bring something for you to set your material on when you spray it. And again, this really shoots out, so you're going to have to watch what you do, because you'll end up with it dripping off the sides. So, yes, you had a question?
Oh, no, we didn't get to see that.
Oh, okay. Anybody else?
Some of those around.
Yeah, if you want. Let's pass some of these around. Please don't drop them, because these are a shipment that are going out.
She's done a lot of beach scenes because Kathy sells hers at Christmas Cottage. And I sell the bulbs too, so.
We sell them in the same place.
Yeah, lots of them.
Yeah, lots of them, so yeah.
Okay, the same thing with the bulbs. You can set them like this. You'll be painting on one side. And then if you want to let them dry.
And we're
set
gonna
them.
be providing a little cut down cup for you to set your bulb in.
So you can either do the round, which these were all donated, that someone gave to Diane, which is great. You can paint on the round ones, or I will be providing the little flat ones. These are easier to paint on. And I use the glitter, some of you know how to do that you pour inside of them. And if you want the glitter ones, I can go ahead and do it ahead of time, because they have to dry. So you can let me know, whoever's going to come to the workshop, if you want red glitter, blue, silver, or if you just want them plain. And you can just paint on one side of them. And again, you will spray them with the spray after you finish, if you have a full scene. Or we could use, there's a water base that you could buy, which I'll bring some, that you can paint it on instead of the whole bowl. So either way, it works. And I also have some of these little flat wooden ones that I'll bring too, if you'd rather paint on them. I'm going to go ahead and pass these around so you can look at them. I haven't been able to purchase the bulbs yet because they're not out yet. I'll get them at Michael's, but Hobby Lobby doesn't
Hers
have
are
these.
seasonal, and mine just depend on a low tide.
Yeah, these are all plastic, so they won't break.
Here, keep them in the other tray. That top tray is too flexible.
Yeah, let's put them together.
Yeah.
Put the top on it.
Oh,
Oh, well, I was
No.
thinking
or
just support it.
whatever.
Underneath it.
Underneath,
Just support it.
it's, the top is stiffer than the bottom. Yeah, there, look at there.
So there's all little different scenes that you can paint on them. As you can see, I did some little scenic ones with little houses. And I added the glitter to them, which I'll bring some sprinkly glitter to, which will probably have a little area just to do that.
Do you mostly draw, you have your pattern over here and then you mostly draw it freehand?
I do.
Yeah, me too.
I do. I can bring a few different kind of patterns, like the birds that you can
Yeah.
trace on, but it'd have to be on the flat ones.
Yeah,
The round ones, you
got it freehand, okay.
so, the round ones are a little bit trickier to paint on than the flat ones.
Well, yes, and even the
Because
curve.
you have to get used to the little curve.
As I was saying, that the sand dollars are different by shape and size, but they're also different in terms of depth. And depending upon what it is I'm trying to paint on them, I will select a sand dollar that has either more or less curve to it. Because they can be, like I said, a challenge.
We
like
can
Shirley
use
said.
a regular little tree hanger, or we can also use the ribbon, which Kathy will have to show me how
Yep.
she does. So
Oh, well, again, your ribbon is a little, it'll be different, but yes, we'll use the same ribbon, you just slip it on and
And then the spray paint is available at Mart, and it's dries like in 5 minutes. So,
yeah, I actually, Fred Meyer's, I was getting mine through Fred Meyer's, it was their HD brand, well, they're discontinuing their whole paint
and
section.
this isn't as strong either, this Mart brand.
No, and so this is Rust-Oleum, and so I went online and I found a sale, 3 cans for, they're like $4 each, that is, yeah, that's a deal.
Yeah, that is.
That is a deal.
Mart has it on sale right now, I think.
But if you're going to
8 or something.
do this, not just for this workshop, if you're gonna come to the workshop, but you're planning on doing ornaments after that, it is important to invest in your products with good paint, good
Paint
brushes,
and a good brush.
and a good brush.
A double lock is kind of a good liner
Yeah,
brush.
because, it'll make a whole difference in the world and what you produce and what you.
And these are all acrylic too, I paint on the molds and acrylic, so.
So, if there's not any more questions, feel free to come up and take a look at what we got here. We try to keep this short, we didn't want to run over, so that we have room and time for our critique.
Is there any questions, any more questions? Liz?
How do you prepare the ornaments?
You just
Just
paint on
put-
them and then you spray.
Hers are
Oh,
easy.
When
just
they're
paint
finished, you
on,
spray.
no, you don't have to prepare.
On the glass ones, I usually put a coat of acrylic, then spray it, let it dry, and then paint, because it's a glass surface. But on the plastic ones, you don't have to do that. That was a good question, yeah, so. But we'll have that available at the workshop.